How's it going? My name is Brent from Encore, PPF and Tint, and today I am going to go over how to install a partial hood package. So we're going to do partial hood, partial fenders in this video. This is a 2024 Nissan Z Nismo, and so it's a brand new body style. And unfortunately, we're not going to be able to show the bumper in the video because the pattern's not ready yet. So it was available, but it was cut at your own risk. And it doesn't fit well yet. They've got to go through and obviously do their finishing touches on it, although I was appreciative for what was in the computer because we were covering everything on the bumper. So there's a lot of other little parts that were fantastic to have a kit for, but the bumper piece was a lot of struggling and it wasn't worth showing on video. Anyway, let's go ahead and take care of this hood and show you how I install those and the things to look out for and the things to make sure that you're doing when you install a partial hood package. So when installing a partial hood package, I do the fenders first and then I move my way onto the hood, and that's to make sure that I can get the alignment correctly between the two, because you do want the fender and the hood to line up. Uh-oh. That must be the wrong side. I hate it when that happens. Yeah, that's wrong. Okay. Obviously, to fit in the material, they were switched from left to right. To take up less material. I don't know. My wife must have moved them around. I'm just lining up this tip here, and then this part wraps over, and then you just run along the edge here of this, and that's going to be a good alignment. There's no stretching on this one, just lays flat on there, so this is really a piece of cake. All right, so I'm being kind of gentle on this as I'm squeegeeing this out the first time for the first pass. It's pretty chilly in here today, and I've got a decent amount of slip in my slip solution, so this material is wanting to move around a bit. Okay. All right, starting to tack up, which is good, so I can get a little bit more pressure on it. Here we got a finger that came up for some reason. It's bumping into this fender piece here. Yeah, it's kind of trying to sneak under there. This kit is still not verified, so it's cut at your own risk, and I cut it at my own risk.
Okay, he wants this.
Oh.
It's done, and that's it.
Okay. All right, let's see what we can do here. If we can sneak that under, and then I'll make sure later on that that's going to stay down. Sometimes with these parts, when they move back and forth with some flex, they will lift the material up. So you're going to need to be careful of that. And when they go back and verify this pattern, there's a good possibility that that will be adjusted. Okay, so let's go ahead and wrap this into the engine compartment right now. I'm gonna go ahead and just go across the top of the fender, make sure that everything's pushed out, and we're just gonna start rolling this over. So I just did a little bit of a slide jump there. Not a little bit of, that was a full slide jump. And then went back over it again a little bit further down, and then on the third pass rolled it all the way down. This pattern is hanging over the edge here, so it is lifting up. I'm going to need to trim that off. Like I said before, this kit has not been verified, so that will be adjusted, I'm sure. right, just raise it down a little bit. There's a tack solution. Start squeezing the top out of the face, and then we'll start wrapping these back. Do a slide jump there, and then we'll take that slide jump a little bit further down, and then we'll go all the way. Okay. Okay, so now we've got our alignment on both sides by the fender, and we know that that's where we need to be for the hood. So let's move on. So I do use this hose nozzle from Harbor Freight as a hood prop. Works really well. What I'm going to do is use it to prop the hood open, but I want it to be fairly low because that'll help us align this part here correctly. The more closed it is, the better. Not more closed, but I mean, you need a gap there so you can do the wrapping and everything. But you also have to know that this little bit of distance is going to make the line look, if you line it up perfectly like this, when you close it, it's going to be off a little bit. But the closer you can get it and still have, you know, room to work, the better. All right, so when I'm doing partial hood packages, I like to tack one side and then stretch all the way over to the other side. That's how I do them. So what we're gonna do is chances are, by lining up this corner really good, it's going to line up this part really well. But that isn't always going to be the case. So let's go ahead. I'm actually gonna let this close down a bit more. Put that right there. Okay, so I'm just trying to make sure it's pretty lined up, because all of this is going to make a difference on the placement and what the back line looks like. So, you know, if you're falling off like that, it's definitely gonna adjust that line back there. So you want to get it very lined up as far as the hood goes. Okay, so I'm gonna start right about there. It looks like there's gonna be a solid ½ inch or so of stretch from left to right. Okay, so for right there, that is looking pretty good, although it's looking a little high. So I am gonna bring this down and let this hang over. And I am gonna make this just about 1/8 of an inch or so back further, because when this finishes closing, it is going to make the pattern be further that way, if that makes sense. The hood, when it closes, will lay naturally down further. I don't know how to explain that differently. Apparently I just said it the same way twice. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and tack this side down. I'm gonna just go ahead and throw a little bit of tack in the very edge. And that will give this a little bit more time to tack up. It's pretty cold in here today, and I've got a decent amount of slip in my soap, or my decent amount of soap in my slip solution. Okay, great. Let's get this other side going. So we need to get rid of these fingers here, and that's what the stretch is gonna be. And then kind of just judging from the other side, I know this pattern is gonna have to hang over a little bit more down here. And so what I'm gonna do is get my tack solution that I should have with me. Okay, we don't wanna wait too long, because when we stretch this, we don't wanna leave a stretch mark over there. So we're gonna go ahead and put some tack here. And then I'm gonna put my arm right here and I'm gonna pull it towards me. And then you can see as I'm doing that, it's pulling the material right here. Or I mean, it's showing me where it's gonna line up. And then I'm gonna go ahead and squeegee this out. Because I don't have that, I'm gonna break loose the pre-tacking there, because that's gonna be little distortions of the adhesive. Okay, Now let's check the middle, and what I'm checking for, oh, there's a little bit of pre-tacking on this top edge. Okay. What I'm checking for here is just the amount hanging over, just to make sure that we've got it, you know, we're not hanging over too much or too little. And then something that I'm gonna do is squeegee this. Oops, look, there was a little bit of pre-tack in there. I don't know, I should have showed that before I moved it. All right, I'm gonna push the top out first and then bring everything forward. I find that on partial hood packages, as this stuff runs back down, it makes this edge pop back up, and then the water will pool underneath there. And so the more water you have up there, the more of it you'll be fighting. All right, and then we'll go ahead and bring the rest of this down. That's making a lot of noise, huh? Go ahead and just prop that up now. So you'll notice that I've got about a ½ inch, or I'm sorry, not ½ inch, but about half of the squeegee is overlapping into the area I've already pushed down. So I went ahead and squeegeed to here, and then I'm gonna go this way because we don't wanna accidentally pull any of the water through the area we've already tacked down. Okay, let's double check this top edge and make sure that nothing's run down and is pulling up. You will notice that that will be something that you'll regularly see happen when you're doing partial hood packages. Okay, bring this down a little. Okay, and then I'm gonna do the same thing here. And by that I just mean squeegee the sides and work my way towards the center of this area. Okay, so all I was doing with that is just making sure that this top didn't lift up at all and pull up any water underneath the material there. Okay, so we've got that on. So when I'm double checking this for distortions and water or air pockets left behind, I'm gonna go ahead and wipe it off first, and that'll allow me to be able to see them into the material. I'm being real gentle with the cloth. It's basically just gliding across the top. I'm not putting any pressure on it because you don't want to move the material at all or you're going to make other distortions. Okay, that looks really good. I'm going to go ahead and add some tack to these edges and just flush out the slip solution. All right, so I'm just double checking these edges now that I sprayed all this out with the tack solution. I am going across this dry, which you want to be really careful when you're doing that. I just got done wiping it down, so I don't want to put water back on it. And only that's personal preference. So you do want to note that there is rubber underneath here that you have to pull back in order to wrap this stuff under. And this is a lot to wrap, so I'm going to go ahead and trim some of this off. I'm going to trim about almost half of it off. I mean, that's probably, it's over ½ an inch probably. So you can see when I'm trimming this, to keep the blade running smooth through the material, I am putting some tension away, backwards from the cut and away from the cut. And that's what helps you keep the material really tight so that you get a good straight cut. I'm also using my upper finger on top of the blade here to guide me and keep the line nice and straight as well. I'm just running it on that edge. Okay. Great. Let's go ahead now and do a pre-wrap. So I'm going to put some fresh tack in there for a pre-wrap, just to make sure we've got this material as tacky as possible. See if we can get it to stick underneath the hood a bit here. Okay, so we just got to go all the way around. You're just doing basically swipe and hold. Just make sure you keep a good even pressure on the squeegee. And I'm going to switch to a squeegee that doesn't have the angled cut on it. All right, and what I want to do is kind of get this corner down first a bit and then work away from that. In case pushing those corners down creates any fingers, I want to break them up in this area instead of having them all right here. So this is definitely going underneath and hitting that piece of rubber. So this is, you're not going to get as much of a wrap on this as you might get sometimes. My goal here with the pre-wrap is just to get the material off of the face as the, you know, not the final finished edge, but my finished edge to move on to other parts of the vehicle. Because what can happen when the material is drying, especially when you go working on other parts and how long it ends up sitting here, is that you can get a silver line if it completely dries out on the top, but that's only going to matter on darker color cars, really. But it's just a good practice to get into. Also, when you're wrapping these edges, if it's already pre-wrapped to here, at that point, there's really no concern about leaving any air pockets or if any debris got in the edge, because your edge is now not on the face where somebody's gonna be able to see it. It's on basically the bottom side of the bumper. I'm sorry, bottom side of the hood, where they can't see it. So you can be a little less diligent about your wrapping. It's just easier, basically. You don't have to pay as much attention because you did the work ahead of time. You take these extra steps to make that part of the process easier. So when I get this underneath, I'm putting a lot of pressure on it. I'm putting a lot of pressure, so as much as I can, really, on it, to where it's making my hands feel uncomfortable, and I'm putting a lot of pressure on these joints, and I can like kind of feel that, you know, like I pressed real hard right there. As you could see, I did press real hard right there. Okay, so now we'll just let this dry, and then this final part of wrapping this down will be part of the final process with the heat sealing. And basically on edges like this, it's not really heat sealing, but I call it heat sealing. I'm going to be heating these edges up and wrapping them in. And then heat seal is more on an edge like this that's visible, where you're not wrapping the material. So you want to make sure that that edge gets sealed down, because you don't want it popping up because it's going to get dirt underneath it. And that's most important on edges like this, but you always heat seal every edge every time. So this whole top will get heat sealed as well. Just it'll be more, you know, a faster process on this part because it's not, the chances of this popping up are slim. Obviously on edges where the material is wrapping around or just ducking in just a little bit, you're going to have more of a possibility of that popping up. But let's go ahead and leave this, and then we'll come back to this. All right, let's get these little pieces put on here, or this one little piece put on. All right, so I put a little tack on the car and I put a little slip on the material. I'll just line this up here. So I'm kind of having the same problem I had on the other side. This needs to be adjusted just a tiny bit to be a little longer, because look, I mean, this could even come forward some more. I'm gonna go ahead and tack this front down and then just put a tiny little stretch on it. Try and get it to line up just a little bit better. Like I said, you know, this kit is not verified, so, and this car is brand new. So they made that clear in the computer. All right, there we go. Okay, and let's wrap this under. I'm gonna go ahead and give that more tack solution there. So I've got a lot of pressure on it to get it on the wrapping under. Okay, and then just double check underneath. Make sure you got that all the way down. On both sides, it's hanging over just a tiny bit on the back, on all the way in. So I'll go back and trim that later. All right, but that lines up much better now. So I moved it forward a little bit and then stretched it back. So got a good line there. All right, so I just want to point out that while this was drying, so after I turned off the camera, I went ahead and lifted it up. And that way, all the moisture that's left in these edges are using gravity to get away from the edges. If it's closed like it was, then obviously all the moisture is coming forward and staying underneath the material because it's going to run down the edge and then come out to the front. So, you know, use gravity to work with you, get that water away from the edge, it'll help it dry out a little bit quicker. So we've got this as dry as it's going to be able to get today. I've got to get this done, so we're going to go ahead and wrap this edge. And what we're going to do is put some heat on this edge. Now you can see I'm kind of heating from the bottom side, and that's because it's just very accessible. Most of the time I heat from the outside. What we're going to start with is this very corner here. We're going to wrap that under first and then work our way away from that. Alright, and then I am going to have to, let's see here. Keep that going, and then pull the rubber back a little bit. Do be careful with this piece of rubber because it is attached to the car with a, like just double sticky tape. So it can fall off. You can see here that there are some clips in certain areas. Actually, there's clips and double sticky tape. So don't pull it back too far and damage that. Okay. Oh, I folded it over a little bit on itself. Okay, it's not completely dry, which is unfortunate. I normally like this to be pretty dry. I mean, it's going to be fine. It goes smoother and faster if it's fully dry. Alright, so let's heat that adhesive up. This will also help dry this edge out a bit. Alright, so you see I just go right across the edge on the top kind of first to make sure that we're wrapped. And then I just continue each pass to push back a little bit further on that edge until the whole thing is down. Now in this corner here, you can see that the material is bunched up a little bit, and so I'm just going to put some heat on that. With this heat gun, it's somewhere right around like a 6 count or so, 6 seconds, and then push that down, and that really seals that down so we don't have to worry about it popping up, because there is a little extra material on these corners because they're such a sharp bend. Alright, and then on this bend there's going to be some extra material as well. And then let's get this pulled back up because it was underneath the rubber. It kind of pre-tacked a little early there. So I'm going to pull all this back, and then we're going to start wrapping this down. So I started in the middle because that's where we're going to have some extra material so we can get those fingers to push away a little bit and not put so much tension on that very middle. Okay. Looks good. And then I think that's going to be fine. We heated up the material and pushed that down, and there's not so much that it's creating like little fingers there, so I don't think we have to worry about putting more heat on that. Material is bunched over just a tiny bit right here. On the very edge it folded over on itself, but that's not going to be seen. But do that as little as possible because you really need those edges to stay stuck down so they don't peel back up. Alright, so I'm kind of trying to push this into that little recess there as much as I can. Get it stuck down. See from the top down instead. And now for the rest of this, let's try a different look or a different angle. I'm still trying to blow a little bit of air underneath there, hot air, to help make sure that's dried out and that adhesive is as tacky as possible. But this part, it just won't fit underneath there, so I'm just going to heat up the material itself, which is, pretty much normally what I do. Alright, so again I'm going to start right in the quarter, so I'm going to pull this back a little bit, making sure not to be too aggressive. I don't want to break that double sticky tape. Alright, so each time, about 3 passes, and then I did 1 extra pass here because I'm trying to push into that little crevice in there, like we did in the front there. Pull this down again. We're going to work our way towards the middle. And when I get over here, I'm going to bring it this way. So I'm not going all the way until where it's already tacked. We want to take this side this way and meet in the middle. And you can make your middle. It doesn't have to be the middle. You just, you can have your middle be right here as far as what I'm calling the middle. Alright, now that we've got the hood taken care of, let's go ahead and heat seal all the edges in here, or as far as on the fender, and then inside the engine compartment. Oh, and the other thing we're going to have to do on the other side, I'm just talking with them. The other thing I'm going to have to do on the other side, if I didn't already do it, is I installed this piece that goes on the fender flare. All right, so this is hanging over a little bit, and it's gonna wrap a little. So I'm gonna go ahead and push that down first, and now I'm gonna put some heat on it. And you wanna be careful with edges like that because you don't wanna put heat on them and then be pushing them down and then wrinkle them onto each other, onto itself. You basically wrinkle it and then kink it over on itself. You're just gonna damage the edge and then have to cut it off. So on those type of edges where they've got a decent amount hanging over, I go ahead and heat that up, or push that down first, and then I put some heat on it. Just double checking that corner there. These are the areas you're most concerned about popping up. So they're the areas I'm going to spend more time on because we're wrapping a little bit here, as well as this corner really goes up to the very tip there. Alright. And so again, this is hanging over a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and push that down first. It looks like this might wrap around and go underneath and stay stuck down since I can reach underneath, so I'm going to go ahead and give that a shot, and then I'll make sure and just keep that in mind and then double check this area before it goes home. If it pops back off, I'm going to get underneath here and just trim it right along the bottom edge. So remember, when heat sealing, every edge, every time. And then you want the material to get warm, but if you're sliding your glove across it and the material starts getting sticky, like the glove quits sliding real easily across the material, you're starting to get the material too warm. So you either want to speed up or you want to get the heat gun away and take a little break, and then let that material cool down just a little bit. And I mean, just within a few seconds. We're not talking about you gotta wait a minute or something. Go ahead and heat this part up, push it down. So you just want to make sure you get every single edge really well. Because what's gonna, and then go back to that as far as the heating, if it starts to get tacky with your finger, you have more chance of, well, you're getting the material really hot, so you have the more chance of bunching the material up as you're pushing that edge over. And then you're gonna have to trim that off. That's really not something that is all that recoverable from. So just be careful of that. Too much hot can definitely be an issue. You can also overheat the material, obviously, and just damage the top coat. So all right, so I'm going to go ahead and trim this part that's hanging over off. Try to follow that edge as close as I can. All right, great. All right, so let's go ahead and close this down and see how we did lining the fenders and the hood up. Beautiful. Nailed it. And nailed it. Just make sure you can see that real well. I don't know if it's going to show up that well. It's right there. Oop. Right there. Check that out. Those look great. Sorry, it's kind of wobbly. All right, so that's the process of installing a partial hood package. So All that's going to be left to do is I do need to run across the top of this hood here now that it's closed and heat seal the top of it. And then I need to trim the fender flares back in underneath. They're each hanging over about 1/8 of an inch. So I'll heat those up, heat this edge up, and then trim those off, and it's all finished up and ready to go home. Terrific. Well, I appreciate you taking a look. If you found anything useful or helpful, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.